How we do this, we are the truest. Got these fangs super sharp, your shit toothless. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish. In the graveyard, acting foolish. Finna dance with the devil to no music. Cold-hearted, yeah we ruthless. All the ghouls in the cut, let's get ghoulish.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of a podcast called Ghoulish. I am Max Booth, an undead host, and I am pleased to welcome myself back to the intro of this podcast. For those who listened to the last episode, I was not the one who did the intro. My wife had to step in because I was on my way to the hospital after digesting OJ post-tooth brushing. Is that how I should phrase that? Yes. Yes, it is. So evidently, I have some fucked up things happening inside my body since I was assassinated and then reanimated back in episode 100. I am indeed undead, but my insides are rotting at a really odd rate, and I was x-rayed at the hospital, and some troubling findings will discover inside my stomach that I don't have time to get into at the moment, but let me just say that I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to function as a ghoul. I will continue trying to do this podcast as long as possible, but folks need to prepare themselves for a potential future where I am no longer capable of continuing the podcast. Now calm down, that time is not yet. It may never come. No one knows exactly what's going to happen to me, but I have many scientists around the nation excited to find out. But more on that later, because today I'm talking to Nicholas Kaufmann about fungi, mushrooms, toadstools, the thing you put on your pizza, the thing you find growing on your feet. Fungi. Fungus? You know what I'm talking about. It's the fungi episode with Nicholas Kaufmann. It's a good one. It's pretty spooky. Spooky mushrooms. That's the topic of the episode of the podcast. You know the name of it. It's Ghoulish. With me, Max Booth, an undead host, talking with Nicholas Kaufmann about fungi. But before we get into that episode, I just want to say, hey, do you like spooky books? So do I. I write them, and I publish them through my company, Ghoulish Books. So go to ghoulishbooks.com. Pick up some spooky books. You could even pre-order my new novel, Maggot Screaming, which comes out in April. You could pre-order a signed copy over at ghoulishbooks.com. .com, folks. It's a .com business. That's enough talking. Leave a review of the podcast if you enjoy it. Okay. Now let's go ahead and get into my conversation with Nicholas Kaufmann about fungi. Jumping into it now, I have to give a disclaimer to you. I do have one rule about this podcast, because this is an episode about fungi. I will not tolerate any fucking puns in this episode. So get those. Don't even think about it. One pun. That's it.
I understand.
Strike 1, 2, 3. The podcast is done.
I understand. I'm not a big fan of puns myself, so I'm good. I'm down with this rule.
Okay. It just feels really easy to slip in the pun territory with this fungi episode, and I will not stand it. So
No. It's a good thing you're not taking any live calls either, because somebody's going to try and slip a pun in there.
I always accept live calls, but usually when they listen to this episode and call me, the episode is already done because the podcast isn't live.
Right. So they just call you.
Yeah. And then I don't answer the phone because it says scam likely. And
no, I got to say, I feel bad for anyone whose name is scam likely.
I know. What do they ever do? I mean,
like no one will ever answer their calls.
For the terrible name.
That joke is not going in my stand-up routine. That joke is a dud.
That's good. I mean, I have a feeling like everybody in at least this country, I don't know how it looks with other countries with these scam phone calls, but they all have that joke, right? Well, scam likely is just one person who's calling everybody.
Right. He's like the most famous and overworked call center employee.
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's just some guy trapped on an island who finally got salsilvis, but no one will answer the phone to save him. So now he's fucked.
At this point, he's just dialing random numbers.
At this point, he's a corpse.
Well, it's very important to him that he reaches you about your car's extended warranty.
Yeah, well, my business, but he can't tell me what the business is called. He just wants to talk about the business. You wrote a book about fungus, correct?
I wrote a horror thriller that does deal with fungus. So originally, we were going to try and keep that a secret, but I realized it was the only thing I could really talk about during promotion for the novel. So in like the back cover copy and stuff like that, they don't mention fungus at all. They just talk about a strange substance.
The front cover is a skull with mushrooms growing out of it.
Yeah,
correct?
it's not the world's best kept secret.
Okay. So we'll be getting this conversation just spoiling everything.
Yeah, it's okay. All the reviews have spoiled it too. It's fine. It's not a huge spoiler. I think we just wanted to sort of because the main character doesn't discover that the infection is fungal in nature until a little further in.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's going to ruin anyone's enjoyment.
It makes it difficult, I think, to like promote books sometimes when you want to keep certain elements a secret, but those elements will usually like the most exciting thing to talk about on interviews. So it's like, do I keep it a secret and not really talk about anything? Or do I just spill it and maybe that will interest somebody?
It's true. I mean, my previous novel, 100 Fathoms Below, when I was going over sample cover copy with my agent, because he was like, the people at the publisher wanted us to write the cover copy. And I was like, I was talking about how the submarine is under attack from vampires. And he was like, no, don't mention that it's vampires. Just say that it's a malevolent force. But like chapter 2 already has somebody with like 2 holes in their neck. Like this isn't going to be like, this isn't like, some puzzle box right. where people are going to have to work through like, episode 4 of, season 4 of Lost. It's pretty clearly vampires.
Yeah. Wow, that guy exploded in the sunlight. What could that have been about?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
Why doesn't he like sunlight? Why does he have marks on his neck? What's with those fangs? I'm thinking it's a mummy.
Yeah. To be honest, anytime someone tells me like they don't want garlic on their food, I mean that's what I'm thinking. I mean, oh, okay. Now I have to kill this guy with a steak. I hate doing that.
Do you remember there's a scene in the Monster Squad where one of them has like a garlic pizza and like shoves it in Dracula's face?
I don't recall that, but I've seen that movie a bunch of times. So I believe you.
Maybe it's in my head canon.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
It's been a while since I've seen it too, but that always stuck with me. Like, I saw it as a kid when it came out. And I thought, well, wow, if I'm ever attacked by a vampire, I just need to run to the nearest pizzeria.
Yeah, I mean, that place is stocked and loaded for the vampire apocalypse.
They're ready to go. I mean, they have those wooden paddles that you can just break and turn into steaks, and they have powdered garlic everywhere.
Do mummies have like something that's universally known as being like the one thing that defeats them? Like most monsters do, but do mummies?
Yeah, no. Is there like? Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, is there like a silver bullet for mummies, right? Is there a stake for mummies? And I don't think there is. I think even in like those old Universal horror movies, like they would just burn the mummy, or it would like wander into a swamp and just go away. So I don't know.
So it's not enough mummy movies, I think, especially nowadays.
I'm 100% in agreement on that. More mummy fiction is necessary. More mummy movies are necessary. I know we lied to the audience and said that we were going to talk about fungi, but we're really here to talk about mummies.
You know why? Because mummies, pretty fun guys.
Oh my God. You have to boot yourself.
Yep. See you,
You
Nick.
have
This was fun.
this show is now mine.
God,
The
I hate
Ghoulish
myself.
podcast with Nicholas Kaufmann.
I hate myself so much. Okay. So the way I've seen the back of all the book marketed and some of the reviews, they've described it as like a small town invasion of the body snatchers type of thing. How would you pitch the book to the audience?
I think that's a pretty good way of describing it. It is a small town story. It's a fictional town in the Hudson Valley, and the main character is the female medical examiner and also town doctor. It's a very small town. There's not a lot of crime there, so she sort of does both. She's a part-time medical examiner as well as the sort of town doctor. And one day she has brought a body to autopsy from it's the body of a high school student that they think may have committed suicide, but the student's parents thinks maybe drugs were involved, so they want an autopsy. And she goes through the autopsy. She discovers this strange substance inside the body of this dead high school student, and is unable to identify it. So she has to call in her ex-boyfriend, who is the science teacher at the local high school, but also has a PhD in botany, and he's the one who actually is able to identify it as hyphae, which is sort of the fibrous body of a fungus. I'm not sure if you know this, but most people actually don't. Mushrooms are not the body of the fungus. Mushrooms are basically just the I hate to say it, the sex organs of the fungus. So the fungus is actually this huge body of fibers underground, and the mushrooms are just the fruiting body that send out spores.
I did not know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what they discover inside the body of this dead high school student is basically a fungus, and now they have to figure out how this fungus got in there, and was it connected to this person's death?
That sounds really interesting and exciting. I imagine a book like this, which is heavy in science, required a ton of research ahead of time. First of all, like, how did you even get interested in this topic, and what led you to writing this book, and what type of research was involved?
There's a long story to how I wound up writing this book, but I'll give you the short version, which is that basically I wrote a novel that my agent hated. It was also called The Hungry Earth. He hated it. He said, "This is terrible."
Oh no.
Which I'm used to. He has good taste, and I'm a terrible writer. So he so he said, "No, this is terrible. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to read this book called Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake," which is probably the best name I've ever heard on a book.
Sounds like a wizard.
Yeah, no, exactly. Merlin Sheldrake,
man of magic.
He's somebody that the hobbits should go looking for to help them on their quest. But he's actually a mycologist. He studies mushrooms, fungi. And he wrote this fantastic book called Entangled Life, which is all about how fungus is connected to human life, and vice versa, how it's all entangled. For instance, the citric acid in the Diet Coke that I am so addicted to actually comes from fungus, which I never knew. But it's everywhere in our lives. So I read this book and I learned so many amazing facts that my mind just exploded with ideas. And I came up with this concept of what if I, could I use any of this in a story? So the research phase was basically reading that and then springboarding off of it to read so much more about fungus. And the more I read, the more I realized I could turn fungi into sort of the villain of this story, the antagonist, because there are really some messed up funguses out there. And I know that we both saw that article that you sent me about the one that turns flies into sex-crazed zombies. And though that's not what the novel is about, there's a similarity in that it has also taken over many of the people in this town.
Yeah, I know I've read in the past that fungi, they have a great capability of brainwashing somehow. Like they can take over like hosts. Am I on the right track?
You are so on the right track.
Yeah.
Yeah, fungi are scary. So everyone knows about the Cordyceps fungi at this point, which is the one that's it's in the video game The Last of Us, and
Yeah.
it's also the fungus that creates the zombies in M.R. Carey's book, The Girl with All the Gifts.
Okay.
But in real life, what it does is it's a fungus in the jungles and forests of South America and Central America, that basically infects the body of an ant. That sends out spores, and a spore, if even one spore lands on an ant, it burrows inside the ant and starts to grow inside them.
Yeah.
Much like they discover in the novel. And so what it does is it floods the ant's brain with psilocybin, which is the drug, the psychedelic drug that some mushrooms have. And then it forces the ant to climb up a plant, let's say a stalk of grass or the stem of a plant, to what is the sort of perfect temperature and height for it to grow. And it makes the ant clamp down on a leaf or something, and it dies there. And then like the fruiting body of the fungi like bursts dramatically out of the carcass of this ant. It's wild stuff. And in my research, I discovered something really creepy. Even I should say creepier than that, which is that the Cordyceps fungus has been doing this to ants for something like 48 million years, and the ants have started to finally wise up. Like now they're aware that this is happening.
Yeah.
And some ants have developed an ability to figure out which ants in their colony have been infected even before like the fungus takes over their brain, and they will like bodily carry that ant out of the nest and leave it in the forest to die.
Do you know like what the method is? Like, are we talking like the blood test scene from The Thing?
That's what's so weird.
That's
I don't
so
know.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. That maybe it's a chemical signature or something that the ants can pick up on, but maybe, and this is where it gets a little science fiction-y, there's an intelligence to the fungus that they can pick up on. And so I wanted to have sort of an intelligence to the fungus that I use as well in the book.
You have to wonder like what made these ants finally wise up. Like,
man, after 48 million years, it took them long enough.
Just imagining like an Alex Jones type of ant podcast going,
where it's like, wake up, ants!
Those fungi, little brains.
If you ants aren't seeing what I'm seeing, then you're blind.
Don't be a sheep, ant. Ants are pretty fucking like easy to manipulate, I've discovered, because I've researched other like brainwashing parasites. I know this is one parasite. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but basically it mates inside of cows, then the cows defecate it out, and the whole process is like,
sounds hot.
It's pretty erotic. The whole process is it comes to life inside a cow. It gets defecated out, and then it somehow convinces a snail, I believe, or a slug. Maybe those are the same things. I'm not really smelt to like consume it. And then the parasite is in the slug or the snail, and somehow it then goes to an ant, and the ant takes it, gets brainwashed by this parasite. It convinces the ant to go up onto the tip of grass until a cow eats it. But it's also smart enough to know not to let the ant go up in the daytime because it knows the sun will kill it. It's crazy. My God.
Yeah, no, there's definitely it's hard to know what's instinct and what we can assume is some sort of strange intelligence on the part of the fungus, but they know what they're doing. Like I feel like this novel I've written is actually a warning to humanity. Like don't put mushrooms on your pizza anymore.
Do you eat mushrooms?
I used to put mushrooms on my pizza all the time. I used to love mushrooms, but now I don't because I've learned too much about them.
Is that true? Have you just gone like cold turkey on mushrooms since doing this book?
that might be a little bit of an exaggeration. It's
Yeah.
hard to give up mushrooms. They're so delicious.
I do love
But
mushrooms.
but one thing I learned, among the many things I learned when researching this book, is that it's quite possible that way back in the misty reaches of time, fungi and humans might have a shared ancestor.
Explain.
Okay, so on a like cellular level, fungi has more in common with humans than with plants. Like there are certain proteins that we share that
Yeah.
it does not share with plants. And also fungi breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide like we do, but which is the opposite of what plants do.
Right.
Some people have theorized that way back when there was this shared ancestor. So even though we're now in different kingdoms, we are sort of possibly distant cousins.
It also, I mean, to me, if anything on this planet could have come from like an alien, so like out of this planet, it feels like fungi could be that. It has an intelligence that's really unknown to us, and
Yeah.
it's pretty terrifying to think
I
about.
think in some ways we need to reevaluate what intelligence means, because I think when we talk about when things are intelligent, we think about human intelligence, right? We
Yeah.
have a brain and we have a central nervous system. The fungi doesn't. Fungi has no brain. Fungi has no central nervous system, but it can communicate with whether it's with ants or with other plants. Like there's this whole idea of what they call the wood wide web, which is the mycorrhizal network of fungi underneath a forest where it is connected to all of the trees, and it can actually warn some trees deeper in the forest when there's a fire that has affected trees that are farther away. I mean,
Wow.
it's insane. It's so
what do these trees do with that knowledge? Well, not
well, yeah, I know what
away.
exactly can. Yeah, the fungus is like, run away, tree, run away, and the tree's like, dude, have you seen me?
I'm a tree.
I'm a tree. Where am I gonna go?
Yeah, so maybe we're not as intelligent as we think.
But it does. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it also is known to trade nutrients with trees through the root system. And so sometimes it will barter with trees. It'll be like, well, this tree is giving me a better deal. It's giving me more sugar for the proteins that I'm giving it. So maybe I won't give it to this other tree anymore. It's wild stuff. And it really blew my mind to read about.
It's honestly pretty terrifying. But it doesn't make me not want to eat mushrooms.
No, I know mushrooms are delicious.
It's only cases of mushrooms like infecting humans in the similar way. Like I know those poisonous mushrooms, but I mean, like I like
Right.
those a certain pill site. Again, I don't know the name off the top of my head, but it's mainly found in cats, and like the cats will give out maybe in the like little pee.
I think it's in their poop.
Poop. Okay,
Yeah, it's in their poop.
And it tricks mice and rats into not being afraid of cats, so they get up close to them. The cats can eat them. But I know like there's like a huge percentage of human beings who have that same parasite in them from cats. But it doesn't really affect them. So I wonder, is there anything mushroom fungi wise going on as well?
Well, I wonder if it does affect cat owners. I've been a cat owner for many years now, and I'm just a complete slave to my cat now. And I wonder if maybe part of that is this poop parasite that I've now I'm probably swarming with inside.
Probably. You might be like 3 cats in a trench coat at this point.
Oh man, that would be the life.
I would love to see that drawn.
That would be
like if someone listening to this episode is good at drawing, please draw 3 cats in a trench coat and send it to Ghoulish Pod. Oh, that would be great to see. I would love it.
Do you get a lot of fan art?
Nope.
No, neither do I. Why don't I have artist fans?
I don't know. I always ask Philip, but no one's listening to this podcast.
No,
it's just you and me.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm determined. I'm determined to have a good time telling you scary facts about fungi.
Well, what else you got?
Okay. Well, let's talk about the Massaspora fungus.
Okay.
So, cicadas, right? They come out every 17 years. But when they're not out, they're underground, living as sort of subterranean larvae. But when they do finally break the surface, some of them get infected with the Massaspora fungus, with a spore. And much like with the cordyceps and the ants, the spore sort of digs into the cicada, takes over its body, floods its brain with drugs, right? So the cicada is just like having a great time and is completely unaware of the horrors that are about to happen to it. So what happens is it drives the cicada around like a friggin' airplane under the fungus's control, and it makes the back end of the cicada fall off its body, including its genitals, and replaces the back end of the cicada's body with this plug of spores.
What the fuck?
Right? And now the cicada flies around shaking spores onto everything it can find, including other cicadas.
Oh.
In fact, one scientist referred to this as the flying salt shaker of death. But it's even more disgusting than it sounds, because much like what that article you sent me about the flies, the Massaspora makes the male cicadas really horny. It makes them want to mate with anything they can find, whether it's another cicada or not, whether it's female or not. So what they do is they grab on and they just start shaking more spores onto whatever they've grabbed onto.
Man, I think I have one of these fungi in me.
Well, we well, what you do in your spare time is
help. I don't want to get chopped in half.
No, but isn't that disgusting?
It's pretty awful.
It makes the back half of the cicada fall off. But the cicada is so drugged up, it doesn't know what's happening.
It's having a great time.
It's having the best time of its life. It's like, I'm on drugs and I'm just humping everything.
I've just been asleep till like 20 years or something, and now I'm just having the time of my life.
Yeah, the cicada's like, if I had known this was what it was like on the surface, I would have come up a lot sooner.
It sounds like you have a list of fungi facts you want to tell me. What's next?
Okay, I do have another one, but I can't pronounce the name of this one, so I'll sort of beat around the bush on this one.
Okay.
But this one is less disgusting, but no less frightening. So you've heard of leafcutter ants, I'm sure.
I have not.
Okay, well, leafcutter ants are ants that go around I think they're in Central or South America, in forests, tropical forests, and they cut leaves. And for a long time, people thought they were cutting leaves and bringing them back to their nest to eat. But then they discovered that the ants don't actually eat those leaves. What they actually eat tree sap or leaf sap for their sustenance. They were bringing the leaf cuttings back to their nest to give to a fungus that lives in the center of their nest.
What the hell?
They were feeding this fungus that lives in their nest these bits of leaf.
This fungus is like the ants' god that they will offer like sacrifices to. Like, please don't kill us this season.
Exactly. And all the fungus does is allow the ant larvae to eat little bits of it, right? Which is like a God-given communion.
This is awesome.
It's wild. And this is actually what I based most of the Hungry Earth on, was this particular relationship between this one fungus and these leafcutter ants. But again, it gets weirder, because the ants have figured out if the fungus likes a particular leaf or not. And if it doesn't like the leaf, the ants will like change up the menu. They'll be like, okay, next time we go out, we'll get a different kind of leaf for our God.
Wow.
And nobody knows how they know. My guess is that the fungus tells them somehow, like, oh, I don't like these leaves. But whether it's just some sort of chemical thing or an intelligence that we can't map or discover on our own, it's super weird. And it's just like, it is definitely, in my opinion, more of a God and worshippers relationship than what a lot of scientists call it, which is ant fungus mutualism. Like, they see it as a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah.
But the ants aren't getting much out of it.
No.
The ants are the ones who have to go toil in the jungle and find, leaves to feed to this fungus who's like, oh no, I don't like those.
That's insane, man.
It's like feeding a toddler.
Yeah.
Your God is a fungus toddler.
It makes you really kind of think, like, because the ants don't really understand, right? Like, they don't understand like this relationship the way like we would understand it watching them. But then you have to think like, is something happening to humans right now? We're doing something similar, and we don't even realize it. Like we're not looking at it from an outside point of view. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And I don't know if you're right when you say that the ants aren't aware of what's happening.
Okay.
I really don't,
Yeah.
because like we heard about the cordyceps, the ants have started to figure out,
Right.
right? So maybe the ants are like willing worshippers.
Do you think
Of
there'll
this
some?
fungus.
Do you think there'll some like atheist ants? Like, nah, that fungus doesn't exist.
There's some ants like in the corners of the nest who are like, I'm not down with this organized religion stuff. Like I blaze my own trail.
Yeah. Some ants are like, maybe they exist, maybe not. I'm pretty neutral about it.
Right. They're like the agnostic ants.
Yes.
Right. They're like, you know what? If I were to see the fungus do all the miracles, then maybe I'd believe.
I mean, if there was a fungus, and how come like so many ant babies die every year? Explain that.
How come the fungus isn't protecting us from floods and predators?
Yeah.
Really, it doesn't. The fungus just exists in the center of their nest and is being cared for and nurtured and protected by the ants. I really don't think it's giving much back.
What comes first, the fungus or the nest? Like, do they build the nest around the fungus, or does the fungus just come in after the fact?
That's an excellent question, and I don't know.
Okay.
I would guess that, and this is actually creepy, but it's just a guess. I would guess that a bit of the fungus is brought into the new nest from an older nest.
Okay, that makes sense.
Kind of like a sourdough starter, right? Where you can give a little bit to each person and then they can have their own sourdough starter.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my guess, but don't hold me to that. But no matter what the answer is, it's creepy, right? Like
it's always creepy.
Maybe if the fungus was there first, that means that the ants purposely decided to build their nest around it.
Yeah.
It's messed up.
I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. So now you know why I was tempted not to have mushrooms on my pizza anymore.
I mean, I still want mushrooms. Mushrooms on pizza is the best. I eat mushrooms in salads. I eat them on hamburgers. I eat them with my eggs. I always have mushrooms going on.
You have a mushroom omelet?
I do.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Mushrooms are just great. I mean, just like a stuffed mushroom is delicious.
Yeah. Just try not to think about the fact that you're eating the sex organs of the fungus.
It just makes me want some milk.
It just makes you want it more, right?
It's probably because of the fungus that's inside of me making me just want to like be a Heathenish salt shaker.
The horny salt shaker of death.
That should have been the title of the book.
That should have been the title of your podcast.
It's way too long for a podcast title.
Yeah, by the time you finish saying it, like it's over already.
So the previous book you wrote which has the same title, The Hungry Earth. Is that
something
like, did it have similar plot structure at all? Like,
no, it was an entirely different story.
Title. Okay.
And also some character names.
Yeah.
I ported over. This was an entirely different story. I'm going to probably cannibalize parts of it and use them because they're parts I do like.
Yeah.
But it was my agent was right. It was very tropey. It was there was like, cursed land and all that kind of stuff. And he was right that I really should have been writing a more modern horror novel like The Hungry Earth, the one that came out.
So he was like, what if he wrote a book about fungi instead?
He's the one who turned me on to it because he had read this book too. And I guess it just lit up his imagination as well. I highly recommend anybody who wants to read more about like crazy fungus facts. The book is called Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake, the wizard. And I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's amazing. We tried to get a blurb from Merlin Sheldrake for the novel, but we never heard back.
That sucks.
He had been swallowed by a fungus, obviously.
Revenge. I mean, the fungi do not want books written about them. I would be afraid if I were you.
They're like, dude, don't tell everyone our secrets.
Yeah.
Because that's how fungus talks. Dude, hey, dude, I'm a fungus.
Hey, dude, I'm a fungi, is what they would say.
Oh, no, you did it again.
I did. Again, I don't... I can break the rules. You can't.
You're the host. You get to break the rules.
But also, I know like fungi, those diseases that people get, like ringworm, that's a fungi, right? a
I think it
fungus.
is. I think it is. And you can certainly have fungal infections as a,
Yeah.
in a real life as a person. Sometimes they're just on your toenails or something, but sometimes they're also in your lungs.
How do you get one? How do you get a fungal infection? Any idea? Like, this is just from eating a
It's not.
fungus? No, it can't
Luckily,
be.
luckily, it's not
Okay.
from. You're more likely to get a fungal infection from just being in a very moldy environment.
Yeah. For the longest time, up until today, I didn't realize that athlete's foot was a real thing you can get. Like, that's a fungal infection, and I did
It
not
is. It
realize that.
is. It's a fungal infection.
I always assumed it was like a catch-all term for someone who just had smelly feet.
Right.
I it Yeah, like
Or like they've
BO.
calloused, smelly feet from playing too much, being too much of an athlete.
That's what I thought it was. Honestly, I did not realize that. They need a different name because this does not tell you enough about what it is.
No, no, but it does come from well, you can get it in, like the shared shower of a gym. Like that's why
Yeah.
you might back in my gym going days, which are long behind me, I would see people in the showers with flip-flops on or some sort of water shoe,
Yeah.
um, which was smart. And I didn't do that, but I don't think I got
You don't
athlete's foot.
think. You don't
I don't think
think
I did. No, I don't think I did.
you will just three fungi in a trench coat at this point.
I would also accept that as
Yeah.
a preferable lifestyle to what I've got going on now.
As a kid, I don't know if I've talked about this in the podcast, but at one point we had a giant hole in the ceiling because we had a bad house and rain would just come in all the time, and we had buckets in the living room.
Wow.
And but as expected, we had a bunch of mold that began growing, and the
Sure.
ceiling was black, and it kept spreading. And
Mhm.
we didn't do anything about it for like a year. And then we
Mhm.
just moved out of the house and lived in a hotel for like 5 years in my childhood. Anyway, it's pretty
Wow.
amazing that
Did,
that
did,
mold didn't affect us at all.
well, you think it hasn't, but no. Were you able to sell the house with all that mold on there?
No, it's I don't know exactly what happened to the house because
Yeah.
my mom was a gambling addict, and I'm pretty sure we just lost it because we
Oh
stopped
my
paying
gosh.
bills.
Right.
Yeah, it's just one day we lost electricity to the house, and we
Oh my God.
decided, oh, we'll go stay in a hotel tonight, and then we never went back to the house.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Uh, wow. What a childhood you must have had.
Oh yeah. You know it.
Have you ever considered writing a memoir?
I have ideas for writing like a book about
Okay.
it, but I don't know. I've always found it difficult to like create an exciting plot out of something like that. One day I will crack the secret, but I haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just being around mold, I didn't even think about that like leading to fungal
Yeah.
infections
Well,
at all, but
because
it would.
mold is a form of fungus and it gives off spores just like most
Yeah.
fungi do. And if you were to breathe it in, you could get a fungal infection in your lungs.
Yeah.
In the novel, obviously, it's different. Like it is also breathed in, but it does more like what the Massaspora does, which is or the Cordyceps, where it takes over your whole body and floods your brain with the drugs, and then they are sort of somehow commanded by the fungus to go and spread the spores to more people.
If you could, knowing that you could make it stop at any point that you wanted, would you allow fungus to like for just a day brainwash you?
No, no, because
Just a day.
first of all, I know that I would not be able to stop it, even if I thought I could, because I would be so high and so hallucinating on
Yeah.
psilocybin that I would only think I could stop it. And then I'd be like, of course I've stopped it, and then I would like fall off a building or something. So no, I don't think so. The statute of limitations has passed, so I can say that I have actually tried psilocybin in my younger days. I did take some magic mushrooms.
Yes, I
Uh,
wanted to ask you if you had. So tell
yeah.
me about that.
All I remember is everything was so freaking hilarious. Like it really. I mean, it's being used now, or will be soon, as a antidepressant and to help people who are either depressed or have psychosis. And the reason for that is it just gives you such a feeling of well-being. It's stronger than any antidepressant I can imagine. It just everything. I thought everything was hilarious. I had such a sense of well-being and a sense of connectedness to nature and to the other people around me. It could be a very mystical experience, and I think it has in some cultures been utilized as a mystical experience. But then also you're hallucinating, right? Like you're gonna the looks like the grass is breathing, or like the door is opening or closing and it's not moving at all, stuff like that.
Everything's a hallucination when you live in a simulation, Nick.
Well, this is all true. Maybe when I took the drug, that was when I got out of the simulation.
You escaped for a moment, a blink in time. I've never taken the mushrooms that way. Mm-hmm. Although now I regret us not both doing that for this episode. That would have been great.
But it would be gibberish if we were both on psilocybin mushrooms right now having a conversation. You would look at it later when you're doing the editing and you'd be like, this is unusable.
Post unedited. I'm not opposed to trying those. I'm not a big drug guy, but those specifically, I've always thought I would probably enjoy that. So if anyone listening right now wants to send both of us, maybe just me, I don't know.
Maybe just you. I think those days are over for me. Maybe you can get some fan art and some magic mushrooms in the mail.
Yeah. So 2 assignments. Send those to P.O. Box 110 Phil Cibolo 78108. Thank you. Have we covered everything you wanted to touch upon?
Oh no, I mean you could talk about fungi for hours and still not be done. I would definitely have mercy on your listeners, but there's one thing I could talk about to close this out.
Please do.
And that's the fact that we are actually now, there's a lot of research and development going on using fungi for a bunch of different things, from antidepressants, like I mentioned, to drugs that help with organ transplants and stuff like that. And one of the more really interesting things that they're doing is they're experimenting with using fungi to create temporary decomposable emergency housing, whether it's for military barracks or just any sort of emergency housing that's necessary. And it's basically they could construct or grow a building out of fungus, and then when they no longer need it, just allow it to naturally decompose.
Wow.
Which is fascinating to me.
Would you live in a house of fungi?
I imagine that there would have to be some sort of safety in place so that you're not constantly breathing in spores and stuff like that. But,
just waking up with half a fungal toadstool inside of your mouth growing into you.
Right. Oh, and you'd be like, not again.
Keeps happening.
Why did I bother living in this fungus house?
I guess I did live in a fungus house, didn't I?
But I just find it fascinating, all the uses that we have and will have from sort of harvesting fungi.
And plus, am I correct? Isn't fungus in penicillin? Like some medicines have it. Yeah. Yeah,
penicillin is a mold. It's and it was a life-changing and world-changing discovery. So so I've been talking about scary stuff that fungi do, but I mean, there's good stuff too, like penicillin.
And houses.
And temporary housing. That's right. And you can, when you're done living there, you can eat it. You can eat your house.
You can eat anything.
Well, I mean, it's digestible.
Do you think we have a mushroom city in the future as a society?
I don't know. I think that would be first of all, I think that would be way off. That would be after our lifetime, but I think it's a possibility. I don't see why not. It's, they've already discovered that you can make really resilient building stuff out of bamboo. So I don't see why not mushrooms. So I mean, mushrooms, the hi-fi in mushrooms, those fibers are incredibly strong and can push a mushroom through cement. I'm sure you've seen either pictures or in real life mushrooms coming out of a sidewalk. I mean, it can break through cement. So it's got some strength to it and some resilience. So I think you really could see maybe not temporary housing, maybe permanent housing one day, made from either fungi or from sort of manufactured version of fungi.
That's what all these science fiction movies get wrong when people like travel to the future.
Yeah.
That's what I see now. You go to the future, everything's made out of fungi.
Right.
Buildings,
So
weapons.
what are they gonna what are they gonna put on their pizzas?
I don't know. Brick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wood.
Brick and pizza.
Delicious. Okay.
Hey, listen, I've been to some towns that have some pretty bad pizza, and I'm sure it's even brick and mortar would be better.
Probably. I don't know. I've eaten pizza with pubicule on it. I've eaten pizza with glass on it.
How did that happen?
Still pizza. It's pretty
It's
good.
still good. It's
Yeah,
still
I mean,
good.
I've always said even bad pizza is better than no pizza.
Your
so
gums are bleeding from the glass, but you're like, pizza, man, it's so good.
it adds flavor, the pain. Well, maybe that's the fungus in my brain saying it's okay. I don't know. How can folks find you online?
You can find me at nicholaskaufmann.com. Don't forget the second N in my last name, in Kaufmann. It's been tripping people up for years, but you need to put it in there for the website URL. I had a great blurb from Grady Hendrix for the last book, for 100 Fathoms Below. We couldn't use this part of it, but he said the extra N in Kaufmann is for extra nightmares. And I thought that was so funny and so great.
Yeah.
So just that's how you're going to remember to put that extra N in nicholaskaufmann.com. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Twitter as the Kaufmann, because every iteration of Nick or Nicholas Kaufmann was already taken. I'm on Instagram. I'm everywhere. You can't escape me. I'm everywhere.
Much like fungi.
I am the fungus man on all social media. In fact, that should actually be my handle, the fungus man.
It should be. So please change it.
Yes, I'll get right on that.
Okay. And that was Nicholas Kaufmann talking about fungi. Go pick up his new book, The Hungry Elf, any place you buy books. It sounds like a good one. I haven't read it, but it sounds great, and I would recommend it based on this conversation. It sounds awesome. Pick it up. The Hungry Elf by Nicholas Kaufmann. Now, I have some books coming out through my own press, ghoulishbooks.com. My own novel, Maggot Screaming. You can pre-order that right now, along with some books by Little Hightown, John C. Foster, and C.S. Humble. Lots of fun, spooky books coming out through ghoulishbooks.com. Go take a peek at what we have coming out, pre-order some fun books, and leave a review of the podcast on iTunes. Leave a spooky review. Can you be spooky in an iTunes review? Show me how.
Live spooky, die spooky.
Rest in peace, Max.